With WWE's newfound acquisition of AAA, many a wrestling fan out there is worried that WWE is becoming, or has become, the dreaded monopoly. But if that is so, is this even anything to worry about? Or, in the least, is it something to worry about in the way that many fans think that it is? Well, it's a perfectly good question that serves as the topic of this episode. Because today, alright, so first of all, is WWE a monopoly? No. But that doesn't mean it's not something that's almost just as bad, if not, maybe even worse. Monopoly. Exclusive ownership through legal privilege, command of supply, or concerted action. Exclusive possession or control. A commodity controlled by one person. Now, the key to this definition is the word mono, meaning one. And by this to-the-letter definition, WWE is not a monopoly, even if they have acquired AAA and Evolve, as there are plenty of other wrestling companies out there, such as AEW, New Japan, and oh yeah, I guess TNA is still a thing technically. Not to mention countless amounts of indie feds out there as well. However, monopolies aren't the only thing to fear in this equation, as there is the lesser talked about oligopoly, and no, that is not the name of a probiotic soda. This is a market situation in which each of a few producers affects but does not control the market. This is otherwise referred to as a near monopoly, where a few companies control the entire industry. And the problem is, this affects a lot of what we see today, and it really damages competition in a capitalist economy that's supposed to be all about businesses competing against each other to provide the best possible service. And the deeper issue is that while so many out there are really quick to start yelling about monopolies, few seem to be doing anything about oligopolies, which are the more common problem. Although, it's not like the government hasn't stepped in the past to break up almost monopolies. Back in the early days of television, when there were CBS and NBC, it was deemed that the national broadcasting company had grown too large, grown too powerful, and therefore was forced to split, which birthed the American Broadcasting Company, a new channel designed specifically to compete against NBC. And since then, we've had many new television channels to choose from, and during that time, it seems that professional wrestling might be in a very similar boat, as for the most part, wrestling these days isn't really competing against itself. Sure, occasionally there will be two wrestling shows that happen at the exact same time, but with on-demand and the internet, there's nothing really preventing fans from viewing as much wrestling as they want. And so, while these companies aren't exactly working with each other, they're not exactly working against each other either. Furthermore, when we extend back to the territory days all the way till now, it's not a lack of competition that has created one company amassing too much power. It's actually, well, all of us, which is a shame because when it comes to all that power, traditionally when it comes to monopolies, the big problem is an economic one that comes down to how much consumers have to pay. After all, the real problem with one company controlling everything in the market is that they control the progress that product makes, they control the supply, and they also get to control the prices. And when we look at the exorbitant cost of WWE ticket sales these days, it might seem like this is exactly what's happening to us now. Although that isn't exactly true. While yes, monopolies and near monopolies can make it much harder for consumers, the absurd cost of going to a WWE show isn't the result of them having near control over the entire wrestling industry, at least not primarily. Certain musicians have made it so expensive to see their shows that many Americans have decided that it's easier and cheaper to fly over to Europe, get a hotel room, and then watch the concert there than it would be if they just paid for the same show in the United States. Now sure, there are plenty of other artists out there and there are plenty of other concerts out there, but that doesn't change that if you want to see Taylor Swift specifically, it's gonna cost you an arm and a leg no matter what. And fine, maybe you can make the argument that Taylor Swift has a monopoly over being Taylor Swift, but the point is, a monopoly is all about controlling an industry, not just controlling one particular brand. And so, while WWE is the only pro wrestling company that makes WWE content, they are by far not the only wrestling game in town. But as is the case with high-profile musicians, WWE is a high-profile wrestling promotion, and they can charge a lot not because of a stranglehold that they have over the industry, even if they do have one, but just because they know their fan base will pay for it, as most of us out there easily have the ability to see a much less expensive independent wrestling show, a lot of us still give most of our attention and most of our time to one of the big major companies. Patreon shout out to my awesome Patreon supporters, such as Dakari Garmin, who can collect $200 even without pass and go, Mr. J, who builds houses on top of hotels on the boardwalk, Ron Hawthorne, who might be the only person to know what actually is supposed to happen when you land on free parking, Mangy Stray, who got a lot more than $10 measly for winning second prize in a beauty contest, and Harry Flynn, who got the go to jail card but it was only for a conjugal visit, as well as to the rest of my Patreon supporters. Thank all of you so much. You're really helping to keep this channel going. And so, when you stop to think about it, in some ways, one of the big issues is, well, us. As while we have a lot of options, the mainstream population chooses to watch one particular company. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Although, I will say it does come down to us again in other ways. The big problem isn't a financial one, as we just talked about. We're not actually concerned about that. When we complain about a lack of competition or a lack of options, what we really mean is we have less promotions to give us what we want. Of course, when wrestling fans voice their concerns and complaints about monopolies in professional wrestling, what they're really complaining about is a lack of creative options for themselves. As we established, the problem with monopolies and near monopolies is that one company has control over the entire market. But that isn't what we're concerned from, at least not from an economic standpoint. Our problem is that we fear that some of our favorite wrestlers aren't going to get the opportunities or the pushes that we want to see them get. Therefore, giving us multiple high-profile companies will be able to scratch that itch. It's why a lot of fans out there like the brand split between WWE shows. And on top of that, we're not even concerned with our own financial problems, as this isn't about how much money we have to pay to see a wrestling show, but instead we want our wrestlers to get paid millions of dollars. We want them to be in high-profile companies because we feel that they are high-profile talent. And so, when you stop to look at all this, the biggest crime that any professional wrestling company can ever commit isn't being a monopoly, it's actually just not booking the way you want them to book. In the eyes of any wrestling fan, that is the worst thing you could ever do. And while I totally get it, it is really frustrating not seeing the guys you want to see pushed get pushed. At the same time, a push only means something if the push has value. If we had a million wrestling companies with a million world championships, they're not going to mean as much as having one real world champion. But of course, having only one world champion and one wrestling promotion brings us right back to the monopoly problem that we had in the first place. So no, I'm not suggesting that we have just one single solitary promotion, but what I am saying is that the precise nature of a monopoly isn't the easiest thing to talk about. How many world champions should we have in professional wrestling? And is there any amount that would prevent WWE's championship from feeling like the most prestigious? After all, while there are multiple football companies out there, there's still only one Super Bowl. Sure, I do like having a variety of different wrestling companies to watch. I miss the days when we had ECW, WCW, and WWF. I miss when New Japan used to be good, and I also miss more comedic companies like Chikara. I want variety for variety's sake. But at the same time, I also really don't need any more wrestling. There's so much wrestling to watch all the time. As far as wrestling is concerned, I'm not worried about an oligopoly or even WWE becoming a monopoly for financial reasons, and I'm not really worried about it because I want to see more wrestlers getting pushed. But what I am worried about is that the less professional wrestling promotions that are out there, the more narrow the definition of what professional wrestling is becomes. Yes, AAA has been acquired by WWE, but at least for the time being, it still exists. And as such, it still contributes to the industry, it still contributes to the fabric of professional wrestling. And sure, the version of ROH that we have now is pretty much just more AEW, and while that might happen to AAA, we'll have to cross that bridge if we ever get to it. Whatever happens next, and I'm sure a lot of us have concern considering how WWE handled WCW and ECW that things may not go great for AAA. But right now, it's a new regime, and so far, things seem to be going pretty well for Evolve. And while it wasn't great, ECW did eventually make a comeback, and while it's not its own promotion proper, a lot of great aspects of WCW have resurfaced, such as War Games, so I'm just saying, you never know. But for now, just like with the territory system, when we look at WWE and NXT and Evolve and now AAA, they all have their own style. They all have their unique abilities. And as such, I don't care if they're operating under one umbrella. I don't care who owns it, as long as they're all contributing to this great thing we all call professional wrestling. But those are my thoughts on WWE being a monopoly. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments, and please share this video. Get more people in on the conversation. Thank you for watching, and thank you to my Patreon supporters. And as always, Dave knows.